All right. Hello, everyone. This is Brett, and thank you for tuning in. This is part two of the Psychedelic Furs series. I have with me Frank Deserto, my friend who writes for postpunk.com. He has his own blog, music blog, Systems of Romance, the band The Harrow, and also recently the curator of the Cherry Red compilation, Cherry Stars Collide. I'll have a link for that review that I did of that in the description. If you found your way here first, be sure to check out the link for our complete Psychedelic Furs album ranking in the video. I may recommend that you start there and then come back to this one afterwards. I'm going to have a link in the description for a playlist that I compiled of my 25 picks here on in this song ranking, and then if Frank ends up putting one together, I'll include a link for that as well, so you guys can check out. I'm going to just let Frank start here. We're going to start at number 25 and work our way down. Oh, and let me mention too before here is not only in this one are we doing the Psychedelic Furs, but we decided to do the Love Spit Love 2 albums and include also Richard Butler's solo album. So just for those of you unfamiliar with those albums, this will give you even a more deep dive into the Furs and related catalog here. So sorry, Frank, take it away.
Yeah. Anyway, Brett, thanks for having me. And yes, hope you all enjoyed the first video we just did. Lots of hot takes, lots of spicy ideas and opinions. And we're going to keep that going. I wanted to qualify my list by saying that this was a lot harder to do in the albums. As Brett said in the first video, they first have 8 albums. They're all pretty dang good. And there's not really anything that's terrible. So amongst it. The tracks, however, there's some weaker tracks, there's some stronger tracks. There's some deep cuts. I'm king of the deep cut, but I'm also love a good single. So this list is interesting. I'm kind of worried now that I'm not as balanced as I thought I would be, but whatever. I want to highlight a couple favorites. And like the way I make mixtapes is I don't like to repeat stuff. So it's like a lot of the songs that I talked about as favorites in the last video are on here, but then some other wild things might be in here. So let's see how it goes. And with that in mind, number 25 does not qualify as anything we've talked about in our original listing. It's a track called I Am Anastasia from Sponge's second record, 1997's Wax Ecstatic, which features Richard Butler on backing vocals. So this track, yeah.
Wow.
That process. Yeah, went deep on that one. Coming out swinging with this one. So I've always liked Sponge, right? Okay, so Sponge, when I was 13, they had that song called Cloud, and they had 16 Candles. And I remember, and the older I got, and then when I got into Psychedelic Furs, I was like, hey, Sponge with a grunge Psychedelic Furs, man. I always kind of like held this vibe that they had the same kind of like droning tempo, like digging in bass. His vocals were kind of raspy and similar to Richard Butler's. And this is not even knowing that there's an actual connection between this band. I just put this together in my head and just thought there was a vibe there. And recently, in the past maybe 10 years, I want to say, I found out that not only were Love Spit Love and Sponge touring partners when they existed in the early 90s, that yes, indeed, Richard Butler sings on a Sponge record. And that track is awesome. So it just seems to me that this thread of between Sponge and Psychedelic Furs and Love Spit Love, had more weight than I thought it did. So really, number 25, I Am Anastasia.
I did not see that one coming, Frank. Totally
over.
Totally caught me off guard on that one. So I'm going to approach my list as if I were making a mixtape for a friend who has not heard the Psychedelic Furs, and I'm going with my 25 favorites at this moment in time. So starting at number 25, and some of these songs we've addressed in the Ranking the Albums video, but gonna elaborate a little bit more on this one. Number 25, I'm gonna pick This'll Never Be Like Love from madeofrain. A song like this, after being in a band for 40 years, the fact that they can still churn stuff out like that is just gold to me. And that little sax break with the backing strings in it, so good. Number 25, This'll Never Be Like Love.
Nice. All right. For me, number 24 is a track that is kind of a deep cut and an anomaly. Most fans do not know this one. It is Alive for Once in My Life from the 2001 live record, Beautiful Chaos. I do not like live records. I've kind of, most of you folks don't know me, but either way, somehow next to the dictionary of someone who hates live records is a picture of me. The Furs have always been a great live band, though, and something about this 90s, 2000s thing where every band would just tack a studio track on the end of a live record. Bauhaus did it. It just seemed like to be like, this is weird. You're burying this song. And Alive for Once in My Life, I thought was a beautiful song. And it took 19 more years for them to finally get a record together. But this is a gap between what I think World Outside and Made of Rain. And it's a great song. And definitely has that like the strings and the way it just kind of like emotionally unravels, I think is amazing. So Alive for Once in My Life in 2001, number 24.
Fantastic choice. Number 24, I'm going to go with She Is Mine, album track from Talk Talk Talk. I had to pay the doorman just to let me use the door. I've always loved that line. Yeah, that's my number 24.
All right. My number 23 is a Love Spit Love track. It's the closing track from their 1984 debut called More. I think I said in the last video, they end an album like gangbusters. Their closing tracks are so good. I don't love the Love Spit Love debut as much, and it might be my least favorite of the over, if you will. But the closing track really hits it for me. So yeah, number 23, More, Love Spit Love.
Excellent. This next one, I feel some pride in taking credit for turning a lot of people on to this next album. I did a feature on this years ago on my channel, but if you're unfamiliar with Richard Butler's 2006 solo album, if you can track this down, stream it, listen to it wherever, it is truly just an incredible album. If we were including this in our Furs ranking, that would have had an interesting ending in the top tier there. So I'm going to go with the album closer as my number 23 pick. Maybe Someday. Richard Butler goes into this falsetto on those ahs, lyrically heavy. Yeah, number 23, Maybe Someday.
And I'm one of those few people that you've turned on to. So full credit to you, of course.
Thank you.
We'll get to that in a minute. Number 22 for me, I don't have any copy of it here. And I'm going to order this soon. It's it's B-sides. The Furs don't have a lot of B-sides, or a lot that I find are standout. Maybe a couple like Aeroplane or things like that over the years, or Dash is kind of an instrumental thing, but whatever. Number 22 is Bad Man, the B-side of House from 1989. We all talked in the last video how Book of Days is my favorite. House is my second favorite track off of that. And Bad Man, just as good as anything off that record. Number 22.
Very cool. Very cool. Number 22, talked about this in the first video. The opener on the US version, Forever Now. I know it opens side 2 in the UK. Upbeat, high energy, those jagged guitar chords in the verse. Yeah, that's number 22, Forever Now.
Great. Ripping right through. So number 21 is from the solo record for me. And it's a track, Nothing's Wrong. And yeah, so I felt a lot of this record in general had a very space rock, Radiohead, Air, later era Church kind of feel to it. Had this like this airiness and beauty to it. It's kind of adult contemporary, but still had a lot of sad, like a lot of pain and a lot of, you know, what makes us love them. So I can really feel this album in general the older I get, especially I'm glad I found it when I did. Thank you, Brett, for turning me onto it. Nothing's Wrong from the Richard Butler self-titled solo record.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. Number 21, I'm going to go with Angels Don't Cry from Midnight to Midnight. It was the second single off this record. That soaring guitar line. There's too many tears. I could walk away, or I could walk on by, or make it all come true. It's just, I love that line. When it changes keys during the sax solo, it's just so abrupt and so perfectly executed. And then everything shifts up a whole step, and it just adds to the emotion when the outro is going on. I love that song so much. Angels Don't Cry, number 21.
Great choice. For my number 20, and this is I'm starting to get a little away from this here on out. I promise I'll be so much deep cuts. Number 20 for me is Make It Mine, which is the B-side of Until She Comes from 1991. I like it as much, if not anything more than the album. It's one of the only like B-side heavy records. Maybe it was the time period, but either way, yeah, Make It Mine. It's a really great track. Check it out if you haven't heard it before. It might be hard to get on a CD single. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. From Until She Comes, B-side, 1991.
Cool pick. All right, number 20. This was a sneaky one. The closing track for, to me, an already superb album, High Wire Days. You think the album is over, and then this one just creeps in. It fades in, and then it just hits you over the head. You already alluded to Richard Butler's vocals on that one. Super emotional. What a closing track. High Wire Days, number 20.
Yeah. Amen. So good. Brings me to my number 19, and I think this is actually, I think I lied before. This is the last of the B-sides. It's Birdland, the B-side of All That Money Wants. I heard it today after not hearing it for a long time, and it was like, whoa, this song is just as good. And it's the first single they had after Met to Midnight, and Stephen Street is on board, and we talked about in the last video, started putting a little bit more guitars back into it, kind of put a little more oomph into the mix, and then led straight to Book of Days, in my opinion. And I moved him away from the 80s cheese that, even though we've all established we liked in the last video, was the right move. It was the right move. So Birdland, All That Money Wants B-side.
Cool. All right, number 19. I'm going to go back to Midnight to Midnight. The opening track, Heartbreak Beat. When I hear that song, it's just so huge, makes you feel good. It's just, I think it's just a great pop song. Number 19, Heartbreak Beat.
It feels like love, you know?
Yes.
Got the radio on. Totally get it. My number 18, and this is a track from the second Love Spit Love album, which I like a little bit more. 1997, the same year as that Sponge era. Heavy alternative rock. The name of the track is More Than Money. Just kicks ass. Oh, you have it on vinyl. Here it is. I think it just kind of rips. That's all I have to say about it. Just More Than Money from Try Some, Eat One, the 1997 Love Spit Love sophomore and final record.
Right on, right on. Number 18, I'm going to go back to Richard Butler's solo album, the song California. I mean, this album is filled with just super emotional ones. The album was conceived with Richard Butler and Jon Carin, who worked with the Furs, also spent time playing with Pink Floyd. At the time, Richard Butler was going through a divorce. Jon Carin's father passed away. So it was really emotional, and I think that reflects in the mood of the album and the songwriting. The lyrics just tear me apart. When the coast of California sinks into the ocean and the ice poles are water, no one will answer you when you call. I mean, it's just like so hard hitting. And it resurrects the Caroline character that we hear from back in Pretty in Pink, who we also hear gets resurrected in the new Depeche Mode album that Richard Butler co-writes some of the songs in the track Caroline's Monkey. So I love that kind of like series of throughout the decades, you're getting that same person or figurative character in Richard Butler's writing that he keeps revisiting. And I find that incredibly fascinating. So number 18 for me is California.
And there's something to be said about, like, you know, his love of David Bowie and how that's certainly a thing with Major Tom and all the space characters.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think I touched upon in the last video. I just want to put it out there real quick that Richard Butler does seem to kind of not recycle, because that has a negative connotation, but he certainly does come back to a lot of themes, a lot of lyrics. Yeah. Trains are big. There's certain things. He's like this. I think I love his stream of consciousness lyrics just happen to kind of repeat themselves in a way that I find intriguing and cool. And like, I don't think I ever noticed it until listening to all this stuff in a row.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah. So my number 17, which doesn't appear as a favorite track in the last video, but I'm not going to be contrarian despite being all these other deep cuts. Number 17, which is my favorite number, go with Love My Way. Never sick of it. Every time I hear it, I think it's a perfect pop song. No matter whatever 80s recycled nostalgia, member berries thing you want to feed me, it's a great track and I love it. And the way it hits that falsetto and towards the end, the way the drums just kind of pummel in, it's perfect. Love My Way, number 17. No shade.
Great call. Number 17, I'm going to go with one that we discussed briefly in our album ranking video. I'm going to go with Sleep Comes Down. On the album, speaking of Love My Way, where Love My Way is, just probably the most known Psychedelic Furs song to the world. That is my favorite track on this record, Sleep Comes Down. Those strummed bass chords, those orchestral flourishes that occur when he says the line about the orchestra playing very loud and you hear orchestras playing in the background. I don't know if that was a Rundgren idea or the band, but I thought that was so incredibly clever. Those strings in the middle section. It's just a weird, quirky song, and I love it. Sleep Comes Down. That is my number 17.
Great track. And thanks for holding the records up, Brett. Sorry I haven't been doing that. I'll start doing that from here on out. I didn't have any of the records of that, but I do have forever and over here. Number 16, though, I don't have, and I just bought a misprint version I have to deal with. Number 16, though, is the track In My Head from World Outside. There it is. Thank you, Brett.
Yes.
There it is. Yeah, great record. It's the only track that appears on here, but I do rank it. That record kind of jumped up my opinion. So I had mentioned on the review that most of that record is like one great big texture. In My Head, to me, just pops, though. I think it's track 2. Is that correct? Anyway, yeah, from 1991's World Outside.
Excellent. Excellent choice. Excellent choice. Number 16 for me is the second song and the third single from Mirror Moves, Here Come Cowboys. As we talked about with the opening 3 tracks on Mirror Moves for me, I just love it. It's that's all I'm going to say about it, Frank. Number 16, Here Come Cowboys.
Yeehaw! We've missed so many opportunities to make a cowboy joke here.
Well, there we go.
No, I'll make them for you. There you go. All right. So my number 15 from the comeback record, Made of Rain, is going to be Don't Believe. The first single, I think, was the lead-off single of this track. Track 2. They really know their track 2s. And Brett, we've already said much about this record. Check it out. It is debatably, it's amongst other choices by, like, say, Blur or Suede, one of the best comeback, reunion, whatever you want to call it, records, period. And not a dud on here. There you go. Number 15, Don't Believe.
Absolutely. Great choice. Number 15, I'm going to go with Sister Europe from the 1980 debut. It was the second single. The lyrics about the Steinway piano, the radio playing out of tune and out of key. Words are all just useless sounds. Brilliant. Number 15, Sister Europe.
Cool. Great choice. Number 14 for me, and President Gas from Forever Now on Everything But Roller Skates. And the lyrics to this are just so kind of ridiculous. I love it. It's just, and I feel, I mentioned before, it's a weird track 1, so I prefer it as the opener of track 2, like this version of it has there. Great single, great deep cut. Not great deep cut, it's a great single. And I feel like every Furs fan should or any would-be Furs fan should know this one and get familiar with it. President Gas.
Good call. Number 14, an album that you're going to be seeing heavily featured on my list is the 6th track from Mirror Moves. Talked about this in the last video, the album ranking, Like a Stranger. I talked about that little staccato soprano sax in the chorus. A great track that we have those first 3 openers, with The Ghost in You, Here Come Cowboys, Heaven, and we already talked about Highwire Days, but Like a Stranger is another favorite on this one, and that's my number 14.
Awesome. Number 13 might be the first thing we actually have that is on both of our lists so far, and it is This Will Never Be Like Love for Made of Rain. The way it just has that, like, Phil Spector-ish sort of girl group drum beat, but boom, like you almost feel like the sleigh bells in it somewhere you don't, but I want that. That song just kills me. It's really it's breathtaking to be able to do that 40 years into your career. What after 19-year hiatus or whatever, but when the Live came out, should we all maybe all have the same level of writing capacity at that time in our lives? But anyway, yeah, 13. This Will Never Be Like Love, Made of Rain.
Beautiful, beautiful song. My number 13, 7th track, On Midnight to Midnight, my favorite song on the album. All of the Law, we talked about that in the ranking video. That great dark opening guitar riff, just excellent. They played that when we saw them in Flagstaff back in the last 10 years. Just an incredible song. All the Law, and I feel like that's a track that a lot of people don't know, and I highly recommend listening to that one. That's number 13.
Great, yeah, and that's a record. That's a one that stuck out to me as well on that record. Now we're getting to the top 12, the dozen, if you will, and not one of these tracks is bad from here. I mean, none of them are bad, but these next 12 could be as interchangeable as any of them. And I'm going to go with We Love You from the first track, from the first record. It is one of the last, it's the last song on the first side on this copy of it, which is the US copy. It was meant to be a celebration of, baby love, and I think I mentioned in the last video, all these things that influenced the Furs, and you could hear it. And my old band used to cover it. We did it one time ever, and we did it as a scathing comeback to somebody who we thought mistreated us. We were still cool. Anyway, We Love You from the first Psychedelic Furs record, 1980. There you have it, number 12.
Good choice. Number 12, I'm going to go with Am I Wrong from the first Love Spit Love album. That was the second single. This was, if you're unfamiliar with Love Spit Love, this is the album that Richard Butler formed after the Furs 1991 album, World Outside, where we had the extended hiatus. And they would reemerge 6 years later in 2000, reunite the Furs. But this record, which was produced by Dave Jordan, if I remember correctly, who did Jane's Addictions, Nothing Shocking, and Ritual de lo Habitual, the self-titled Social Distortion. I think he did Alice in Chains Facelift. That to me is a perfect little song. Am I Wrong? If you don't know it, Am I Wrong? Bring that one up, listen to it. Number 12.
Great. Number 11 for me, getting into the heavy hitters, is Into You Like a Train from Talk Talk Talk, which I thought on the last video should have opened the record, and I think this track listing is kind of flawed. But Into You Like a Train to me just has a statement of intent, has that swirling energy, and then it kind of kicks off into a very driving thing, sort of like India. In fact, so much so on a set list, the first time I ever saw them, they opened with it. There you have it, Into You Like a Train, signed to Allegra. There you go, from Talk Talk Talk.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to go back to the early years as well here for my number 11 pick. From the debut album, non-single album track, Imitation of Christ. I feel like that song should have been a single, but lyrically kind of controversial, I guess you could say. But that song has always stood out as being my favorite song from this album. So I'm going with number 11, Imitation of Christ.
Great choice. Number 10 is No Easy Street from Forever Now, which I think is kind of like the gloomier cousin of Love My Way. We talked about his repeated lyrics. It's also this very similar vocal structure, like the way it just kind of, if you just listen to the two back to back, I find it to be very similar to the way he's singing on it. I don't know if that was intentional or maybe it was just oops, but either way, No Easy Street. Love this track. It's gloomy and magnificent and delicious from Forever Now. Here you are.
Good call. Good call. All right. Number 10. I'm going to go back to this one, which I just talked about 2 choices ago. To me, an amazing album track from the first Love Spit Love album called Please. Reminiscent of Sleep Comes Down with that strummed kind of Peter Hook style, heavily chorused bass line. Once again, as I mentioned, produced by Dave Jordan. That song, incredibly emotional. And when it kicks into the chorus, it's just goosebumps. Number 10, please.
Great. My number 9 is the only one from this record to feature, but it's such a corker. It is Shock from Midnight to Midnight. It is track 2. I didn't realize until I'm saying it out loud that track 2 seems to be often my favorite from theirs.
Yeah, it does.
There you go. Track 2 is can't mess with them. So Shock, Midnight to Midnight. I also enjoy the 7-inch. I think it's a 7-inch mix of this kicking around a B-sides collection. Or a dance mix, whatever. Shock just rules. End of story. My number 9.
Cool. All right, number 9. One of the most, I think, kind of defining songs from the Psychedelic Furs. I'm going to go with Pretty in Pink. As we talked about in the album ranking, they re-recorded it in 1986 for the John Hughes film by the same name, but this is the version that you want to hear of Pretty in Pink. On the US version, which I'm holding up, it's the opening track. To be one of the greatest songs of the 1980s. So yeah, Pretty in Pink, which was the second single from Talk Talk Talk, released back in 1981.
Cool. My number 8 is the standalone single, All That Money Wants, which I have somewhere around here, but I have so many 7-inches I did not feel like getting it out. But it's All That Money Wants. I already had Birdland on here. Those 2 tracks were a great comeback for the Furs. I've come around to loving Midnight to Midnight, but certainly this is the direction that had to happen, or else they were going to be, it would have broken up or never had the same luck again. I'm just glad they kind of turned around, came back with All That Money Wants, which is a great pop single, but also has a lot more guitars. It has a great, like, almost EBO, like, I don't know if it's an EBO, but whatever. It's just this like droning lead. It's perfect. I love it. I can't get enough of it. All That Money Wants, number 8.
Great song. I mean, we whittled this down to 25, which was incredibly difficult. So, Frank, every song Frank's mentioning, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. But like, you only got 25 choices here.
50-track mixtape's pretty good, I would say. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Not a lot of
not a lot of crossover. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Number 8. Talked about this in the last one. I'm going to just go with the first single from World Outside, Until She Comes. Just a beautiful, beautiful song. That's my number 8, Until She Comes.
Great. From now on, I actually realized it was number 7. This seems a little low for this track, but we're going with it. Wrong Train from Madeofrain. We talked about this extensively in the last video about how they were playing this song live forever and ever and ever. Never, it was like their True Love Waits, the song that like by Radiohead, the song that like, oh, you're never gonna record. It's just so good that bootleg versions would have something you would listen to off Napster. I have the same set list here where you can see they played it as their encore. This was in 2004 or 5. It's been always on their set list, and it was just a stunner. It's just so beautiful. The train theme appears again, and Wrong Train. I can't say enough about it. It's beautiful. Check it out. Number 7.
Yeah. Wow. I'll be talking about it as well. I
feel like we have to agree on that one somewhere.
Yes. All right. Number 7. You already talked about this one. The second song on World Outside. In My Head. As I said in the previous video, I got to see them do this. They do that song live in San Diego when they toured with the Happy Mondays back in 2009. What a hard-hitting track. And as you've been alluding to your number 2 song favorites, I mean, that song could have easily opened up the album, but I'm glad they put it there at number 2 spot because it just hits you even harder. So In My Head, number 7.
Excellent. Cool. We're getting some crossover now. Here we are. Number 6 for me. Depending on which version you choose, the closing track of Talk Talk Talk. All of this is nothing. Also used as the title of their compilation record, which was kind of their greatest hits at the time when no one thought the band was, who knows? But either way, the All This and Nothing, great closing, epic, sweeping, sad, almost a little bit of Kiss Off vibe to it. Stunner. Way this album should close, and in the way in my heart it does. There you go, number 6.
Right on. Number 6, I'm going to go with the second single from Book of Days, House. What a song. The Passing Time Is Not My Life. It's just, lyrically, just so heavy hitting. House, number 6.
Which is also my number 5.
I had a feeling ours were going to be like right at the same time.
Yeah, and I remember posting this video the other day, and this is why Brett knew that Book of Days is my favorite. I think I tagged David Allen in it, and he was like, "Yes," he was like really excited to hear that. Yeah, this song, the whole record's perfect, but yeah, that lyric especially. It's a single. It's probably their most emotional single to me, and yeah, there you have it, number 5, House.
Great choice. Number 5. Oh, wow. So this is top 5. Yeah. Once again, back to Mirror Moves. The debut single from this record, Heaven. Just a stunning song. Heaven, number 5. That's all I have to say about that one. It's just, it's kind of perfection at this point.
Nice. Number 4, I have a little bit to say about because it's a special one to me. Number 4 for me is Flowers from the debut record, the closing track. I think I mentioned in the last video that my first real band after college that really I took weight with, recorded with, used to cover both We Love You, but once we covered Flowers a lot. Here's a photo of how we used to look at the time. Holding this up, we were called the Funeral Crashers. That's me holding the drumstick and bowing it. There's our singer there on the ground, and we all love the Furs. The drummer is a big fan. We all just love them. So we covered Flowers pretty regularly. I found an old set list that we spilled lots of beer on that has it as our closing track. We used to play our songs and usually cover. Once in a while we'd do like Cracked Actor, Babies on Fire, Pet Cemetery, which was a favorite, but Flowers was my favorite to play. That bass line, the way it just and the sax blares in. It's a great bookend to India. India and Flowers kind of come out with the same vibes, but Flowers just is that level of like special to me. I feel like it was a baseline that just taught me how to just be better and fast and a little faster, but also learn to get groovy on the repetition. Flowers.
Very cool. Very cool. Deep cut.
Mm.
All right. I'm going to go number 4. You've already talked about this one. I'm going to go with Wrong Train also. We talked about it. We talked about it in the album ranking video. The song has that long history. I first saw them do it live, and back in, I'm guessing that was 2001-ish, and right when they kind of got back together and started touring, and you're seeing this song, and how rare is that where you see a song live and the catalog at that time, and you're like, what is this song that they're playing? It just hits you on an emotional level. And then I heard it as an acoustic track at some MP3 that I had of them doing it on some radio show. Lyrically, it's so hard hitting, and I want to mention that Richard Butler is the master at writing about the ends and the aftermaths of relationships. I think that's just his like sweet spot, and so many songs touch on that, especially like later era. And Wrong Train is in that realm. The lyrics are just hard hitting, and once again, just one of my favorite Psychedelic Furs song. In at number 4, Wrong Train.
Yeah, I mean, what more can we say? It's so good. My number 3 is High Wire Days, the closing track of Mirror Moves that I've always loved deeply, and I always feel, I think we talked about in the last video as well, I know we keep saying this now, but the way at the end he just had this like almost in the round backing vocal where everybody goes like little bit smart, little bit scared. Maybe I'm just even, it's just more phonetic than it is lyrical to me, and the way it just fades in, fades out, kind of comes out, and it's the heaviest song to me emotionally on that record, and I feel the best, and I still love it, even though this was the bottom of my album ranking, top of BRET'S, bottom of mine. I still love Higher Wire Days. There you have it, number 3.
Fantastic. My number 3, you already talked about this one, and I'm putting it at my number 3, Alive, For Once in My Lifetime. Frank, you already brought up about the fact, kind of like Bauhaus with tacking, Severance, I think it was, they tacked on to Gotham, and just this great non-album track. I mean, they hadn't released a song at this point in 10 years, and then you get this song. I mean, they called this Beautiful Chaos Greatest Hits Live, so it's like a Greatest Hits live show. And Alive is on there in a live version, but then that studio version is tacked on, and I think they released it as a promotional single, but it just slipped by everyone, and I feel like a lot of people just don't even know of its existence. This song, I feel like it was like one of those songs that, I look back on, and it helped me through some periods of my life with the power of that song. In the lyrics, for once in my lifetime, I'm not sad. For once in my lifetime, I'm not down. I was blown away when I saw them do it live, like Wrong Train, and you're just like, what is this song? And when the new record was announced, I had 2 hopes. One of them was Wrong Train would be on it, and obviously that came true. But I really wish this song would have been added onto it, just for the fact that a lot of people could hear it, because I think it's just this hidden gem in the catalog. So I'm going with number 3, Alive, For Once in My Lifetime.
And since we both talk about it, for those who came late, skipped ahead, either way, yeah, don't skip it, and maybe we're doing good to this song. Maybe we're gonna
yes
some people onto it. That's the hope. And I think it would have belonged on the record. I think, by the way, thematically, lyrically, musically, it's not a big stretch, Yeah. I don't think it would have, just a little dusting up on the production, throw it on there. Anyway, great choice. I'm glad we both had it there. My number 2, Sister Europe, debut record. Also track 2. Yeah, look at that. How about the apples, huh? Gloomy, dark, sax bleeding, a single, very one of the more well-known of the early era song. The lyrics, broken on a ship of fools, even dreams must follow the rules. So stupidly, like words are all just useless sound, which I think is kind of he does play off that a bit. And a lot of times, like just like cards, they fall around, and we will be. Sister of Mine, Home Again, number 2.
Great choice. All right, number 2. I'm going with, just as I probably said, just one of the greatest songs. I'm going to go with The Ghost in You, and I'm putting it at number 2. So there's obviously something that's gonna take that a number 1 spot. The second single, the opening track off of Mirror Moves. Yeah, The Ghost in You. I just don't know what else more I can say about that other than it is just truly just a perfect song. That's my number 2.
All right, great. And so, are we ready for this? Could we do a little drum roll?
Let's get the drum roll here. I have no idea what your number 1's going to be. I mean, this is yeah.
It's a deep cut. I think actually maybe I did talk about it, so this shouldn't be well. My number 1 track, I'm just gonna get to it. Is Torch from Book of Days. Yeah, maybe that sounds, for those who watched the first video, this tracks now, but is a really wild choice, probably from something else. So the first time I ever heard the Psychedelic Furs, outside of the singles, outside of the song from The Craft, which was that cover of the Smiths' How Soon Is Now, or outside of Love My Way or any of these things, was Torch. This girl I was dating sat me down on a couch at the WNY radio listening album, took this record out, put this specific track on, not just the whole record, put this on, and just said, "Shut your mouth, listen to this." And we did. And she also turned me on to like Mazzy Star and Swans and all this thing. It was very formative. But this track, it's just the way it just has this acoustic guitar strum, the violin, just kind of, that's really it. That's all that's true. It's violin and acoustic guitar, and Richard singing, and the lyrics are so good. You got 1,000 Rainy Days, I Spoke on Tongues and Talk of Saints, and Burned Down Days Like Cigarettes, For Your Hollow Praise, all of this and now I regret. And yeah, it just kills me. There's I only found out recently there's an electric mix of the song, which to me doesn't sound that different. So I don't know what's really electric about it. But I listened to it, I was like, this is still just a perfect song. Played at my funeral. Number 1, Torch from Book of Days.
Amazing choice, Frank. All right, number 1. I was very happy when we agreed to include not just the first songs in this ranking, because I knew this would top my list. The opening track, Good Days, Bad Days, from Richard Butler's solo album, lyrically so incredibly poignant, important, kind of a reflection on regret and just accepting that just some days are going to be better than others. But just I just read a couple of these lines just because they're just so just hit so hard. But I want to unread every book that my eyes laid on, unsay everything I've said. I want to unsing every song, unwrite every line, unstep every step I've made. Good days, there'll be bad days. It's just so heavy hitting. It's one of the most perfect songs I've ever heard. Those lyrics just kill me. If you've never heard Good Days, Bad Days, opening track on his solo album, this thing from beginning to end, I could have easily put more songs in this top 25, but I picked a handful here. Amazing song. That's my number 1.
Well, now sell 5 copies of this record.
I think this one is pretty hard to find. I was fortunate to get it. To get it right away, but I've had people watch the original video I did featuring that one, and I'll often get comments or people saying about how expensive the CD has become. But hopefully, since the Furs are released a new album, I featured this in my Where's the Vinyl series about albums that are would superly benefit from a vinyl reissue. I would love to see this, and I think a lot of people would appreciate its existence.
Let's appreciate that cover for a second, by the way.
Yeah, Richard Butler is a painter as well, and he did the artwork. Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
He painted that. Yeah, he did that.
Yeah,
cool.
I think this one is actually a self-portrait.
Yeah, I thought so. Cool.
Yeah.
He's upstate in Beacon, so he actually kind of kicks around where I grew up and where some of our friends are. You've always thought about wishing I could run into him at a cafe when I go up there. I'm gonna keep trying.
I have a couple good friends that he did a short US tour, like a handful of shows, and they saw him perform, and there was like 25 people, and it was a little promotional tour for that album. And I would have it was in California, so of course it was passed me by, but how amazing would that been? And I think they own a piece of his original artwork too, so very cool. Well, Frank, thank you for participating in this deep dive into the psychedelic furs. Once again, I'm going to leave links for all of Frank's things, his for postpunk.com, he writes features for them, his Systems of Romance blog. Definitely check that out. His band, the Harrow, I'll leave a link for their Bandcamp so you can check out their music. And then, of course, the Cherry Red comp that he curated, Cherry Stars Collide. This is excellent. I'll leave a link to that video where I give a really thorough breakdown on it.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. You will be back, Frank, and we will tackle another artist here in the near future.
Cannot wait.
All right, man.
Cool.
Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
Farewell, everybody.